Hello, I'm Blaine McKernan, a field service technician with Ground Force Worldwide. Today we are going to go through the process of changing a fuel filter for your Ground Force Worldwide equipment. The importance of changing your filter is for two main reasons. The first reason for doing this is to prevent contamination from getting into your equipment, which can cause unnecessary downtime with the equipment. The second reason is to maximize the flow rate going through your Ground Force Worldwide equipment. As the filter gets dirty, it restricts the amount of fluid that can go through and reduces the flow rate of your filtration system. How you know when it's time to change your fuel filter is when the difference in pressure between your intake and your output of your fuel filter becomes too great. Typically, Ground Force Worldwide fuel systems are equipped with pressure gauges to define the pressure in the intake side of the fuel system and in the output side of the fuel system. All Ground Force Worldwide equipment is labeled to make service and maintenance easier and so that you can identify components that correspond with other components in the system. Today we're working with filter A. Each filter has a high pressure and a low pressure gauge that tells you the difference in pressure between the intake and the output sides of the fuel filter. Your pressure gauges are typically located either at the operator station or mounted directly to the filter housings themselves. Normally, the operating pressure for a Ground Force Worldwide fuel system is about 60 psi or 400 kPa. When the pressure difference between the high pressure side of the fuel system and the low pressure side is 20 psi or more, or 150 kPa or more, it's time to change your fuel filter. To get started with this procedure, you'll need the proper personal protective equipment. We recommend a hard hat, gloves, a high visibility vest, as well as eye protection and hard capped shoes. Always refer to your company's specific policies when determining what PPE is necessary. Next, you'll need the proper tools and equipment. You'll need a hose to drain the fuel out the bottom of the filter housing. You'll need some kind of container to collect the fuel in. And you'll need a tool to loosen the fasteners in the top. A 12-inch adjustable wrench will suffice. The first step in this procedure is to close the isolation valves on the intake and the output side of the filter. The purpose of closing these valves is so that you don't waste good fuel, so that you isolate the filter housing and can bleed the pressure out of it if there's any pressure still inside of it, and so that you minimize the potential for a hazardous waste spill. The next step you're going to take is to attach a hose to your drain valve. Now, I've used a 1/2-inch GIC fitting to attach to the drain valve. Each particular piece of equipment may have a different setup, so you'll have to use the fittings that are necessary. Once you've attached your hose to the valve, you can open up your valve now and begin draining fluid into your container. After you've opened that valve, you can open your breather and begin to allow air to go inside of the filter housing so that fluid can escape faster. Now that we've allowed all of the fuel to drain out of the filter housing and we've ensured that it's completely empty, we can open the top of the housing now. You'll need to take your tool that you've chosen to do this with and begin loosening the fasteners in the top of the filter housing. So that you don't forget this step later, it's always a good practice to close the drain valve before you go any further. Next, lift the top off of the filter housing. After you've removed the top of the filter housing, always inspect the gasket in the top for cracks, tears, or dry rotting. There's a plastic fastener in the middle of the filter to secure it inside of the filter housing. Remove that and pull the filter out. After you've removed the plastic fastener, you can remove the filter. But before you remove this filter, take special consideration in how you're going to do it so you don't cause any unnecessary spills. All ground force worldwide has containment, but it's always a good practice to put oil absorbent down below your work area and to make sure that your container is close so that you don't cause unnecessary spills on the ground as you're removing this filter. To remove this filter, pull the plate off the top and pull the filter straight out the top. After you've removed the filter, always inspect it for signs of contamination and damage. Look for ferrous metals or contamination that is obviously from a ground force component. If you do find contamination that is obviously from damaged components, contact your Ground Force Worldwide product support team immediately and they will help you resolve the issue. An extra step that you can take in the preventive maintenance of your fuel system is to inspect the outside of the filter housing and the inside. Look for contamination on the inside. If you do find contamination inside the filter housing that is obviously from a damaged component, contact your Ground Force Worldwide product support team and they will help you determine the cause of the fault. Now that we've determined that all of our components on our filter housing and our filter are in good working condition, it's time to put the filter back in and reassemble the filter housing. Take your new filter and put it in on the top around the thread in the middle. At this point, you can put your plate back on over the top and take your fastener and tighten the filter back down. Hand tight will suffice. Now you're ready to put the top of the filter housing back onto the filter. Tighten down the fasteners equally. To begin, tighten them down hand tight. After all your fasteners are hand tight, you can take your 12-inch wrench and begin tightening them down equally. Once the fasteners stop turning smoothly, they're tight enough to seal the filter housing. Once your filter is back in and the top is tightened down securely, be sure to close the breather valve again. Always double check to make sure that the drain is closed. Next, remove the hose that is attached to your drain. As there will always be some residual fuel left inside the hose, take special care not to make a mess out of it and to put it directly into the container. After you've ensured that your breather valve and your drain valve are closed, you can open up the isolation valves again. By opening your isolation valves, fuel is allowed to flow back through the filter and you're ready to use your fuel system again. Next, start the system and run fuel through it. Determine if there's any leaks in your fuel system. Look around the top of the filter housing, the breather valve, the drain valve and any fittings that are connected to it, and around any components that go in or out of your filter housing. After you've determined that there's no leaks in your fuel system, clean up your work area. Make sure that all tools are cleaned and returned to their proper location. For more information on your Ground Force Worldwide equipment, refer to your parts and service manual or consult your product service team at 208-664-9291. Thank you.